bookish besties, and welcome back to my channel. I just wanted to give a quick heads up that I changed my handle username thing, so you guys will see in my username and my banner that it is changed. So instead of being Jenna's Book Binge, I am now Jenna Between the Books, and I just wanted a little change up, switch up. I am Jenna's Book Binge on Instagram, and I just wanted to have maybe a little bit different of a brand on YouTube than I do on Instagram, so that is why we did that, and I'm very happy. I love it. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up if you see anything different on there. Today we are going to be doing every single book that I've rated 5-star ever. So for those of you that haven't been here before or haven't watched one of my first videos, I was a reader when I was younger, always reading Junie B. Jones, Nancy Drew, stuff like that. And then I stopped throughout middle school and high school. And then when I was in college, I discovered bookstagram, and that got me back into reading, and I read ACOTAR, that got me into fantasy, and now we're here. So I started reading in 2021. We're gonna go all the way from 2021 to now 2024. So I have a few. It's actually not as many as you'd think. I'm very stingy with my 5-star reads, and I don't read that many books a year. There's not too many, but there's still a lot. And I've noticed that the longer that I read for, the more stingy I am with my 5-star reads. So there's less from this year and the second half of last year than there were from 2022. Let's get right into it. There are a bunch of different genres. I don't typically read one specific genre. You guys probably know that I read fantasy, romance, thrillers, horror, basically anything in between. I don't normally read nonfiction, although I do have one nonfiction on this list, and I don't normally read literary fiction, but there is probably one or two literary fictions that are in here. So this is a book that I read a long time ago, but I read it in literally less than 24 hours. I think I sat down and binged the entire thing in one day, which was not a norm for me, so I was really excited about it. And I don't know if I read it today if it would still hold up, but that is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. It's basically this girl that can see ghosts, and there's this whole other world that she gets involved in when she goes to live with her aunt and uncle, and it's just basically a twisty otherworld ghostly novel. Think of The Upside Down, and this is a special edition. It's just gorgeous, and she basically has to uncover secrets about her family as well. I'm gonna go through these relatively quickly because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. I'm gonna try to just give the little gist, give what I thought about them, and obviously you guys know I rated them 5 stars. Now on to a book that I just read that is going to be Carrolli. So you guys know that this one is this man named Legend, and he has a great performance that he puts on, and the two sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, get invited there, and after they get invited there, Donatella gets taken by Legend, and Scarlett's entire goal is to find her, and it's very whimsical, very Alice in Wonderland. I loved it. I really loved the sister relationship in this. It was giving very Frozen, Anna and Elsa vibes, where they come before the guy, which I love. And it was just so whimsical. Like I said, it reminded me of Alice in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all of those things where you really don't believe the things that you're seeing and how they're just an elaborate ruse. It was just phenomenal. I can't wait to finish this series. Now we are moving on to an author I actually met in August, and that is lovely Brynne Weaver, so Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark. I loved both of these. When I met her, she was so sweet. Her husband was so funny. It was great. So I have both of these signed. So cool. I love it. So for those of you that don't know, Butcher and Blackbird is a love story between two serial killers, and then Leather and Lark is the brother of the first male main character and the best friend of the female main character from this book. Rowan and Sloane are in this book as well, so I loved the cameo. But I just love Rowan and Sloane's slow friends to lovers, that they just see each other and they accept each other for who they are, even though they're both dark, and that they just want to avenge the world of bad people. I love it. And then this one, Lark is also a serial unaliver, and Lachlan is a contract killer and he doesn't want to be anymore, but this is their love story. She's trying to help save her family, help save Rowan and Sloane, and everybody that she loves. So this is just a kind of enemies to lovers, bickering, really good novel. I loved both of them, so I cannot wait till Scythe, I think it's Scythe and Sparrow, think it's Scythe and Sparrow comes out, which is the third Kane brother and his girlfriend that we've seen in these two books. So I'm very excited for that. If you like Dexter or anything like that, definitely read those books. They're so good. So this one will not surprise most of you. This is our lovely Queen Emily Henry and Happy Place. I really felt for these main characters, and I loved the dynamic between the 6 like main friend group, and they were all coupled off. And I loved the scenery, the main summer feeling, and I really loved the kind of dual timeline where we go back to see how Harriet and Wynne became a couple, and then we get to the final point of like where they broke up, and then we see how they're mending it. So I like that kind of timeline amalgamation, I suppose, where we're seeing different time points and it's not just a coherent story. Like, we're constantly seeing like what was happening with them at different time points. And look at this cover. It's just so gorgeous. I'm obsessed. But this one was so good. Even though the main characters are a little silly goofy and it's miscommunication, but I really felt for Harriet, how she like needed to be the perfect people pleaser and have this crazy job, and she wasn't willing to give it up for the man she loved. But then she finally realized that work is not everything and academic validation isn't everything. So that was a huge hit for me personally, so I really loved this. Then we go on to a book that I love. Some people don't know how to rate it, some people don't know how they feel about it, and I get it. But when a book makes me this emotionally involved, it makes me think about it, makes me feel like the characters are real, I can do nothing but give it 5 stars, even if it is very trauma heavy and maybe some people see it a little trauma dumpy, and I get it. And that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. But I have never read first of all, I've never read a literary fiction that is 800 pages long. I flew through this. I audiobooked it and read it physically. And for those of you that don't know, this is basically just a core group of 4 college best friends, and they literally go through their life from college until literally the day they all die. And it is so heartbreaking. The characters feel real. It's kind of ridiculous. I basically felt like I was reading someone's life story, and it was just so beautifully written, so purple prosy and gorgeous, and just so eloquently written that I couldn't give this any less than 5 stars, even though the topics are heavy. But again, everybody has their own subjective view. If you didn't like this, that's totally fine. It might not be your cup of tea, but I really loved it. It was so heartfelt. I really felt like I knew these people. So, and then moving on, you already saw the color, so you're gonna know what this is. But moving on to a book that I've talked about so much on this channel, and that I'll never stop talking about, and that I have art cards for, and that I literally am obsessed with. One of my favorite books of all time, Walking Around by Emily Rath. I know some of you hate this book, and I know that sometimes a romance doesn't need to be this long, but I needed this book to be this long because I needed every single detail of these characters' lives and their love together. So she is the athletic doctor trainer for this new hockey team called the Jacksonville Rays. She basically falls in love with 2 best friends. They wind up becoming a 3-person group, and then they add a 4th in with the goalie Ilmari. So it's Ilmari, Jake, Caleb, and Rachel, and they're just one little happy family, and their story is so sweet. How she falls in love with each of them, how they each fall in love with each other, and just the family dynamic that they create is so sweet. And the spice is spicing. This is like a 5 spicy pepper book, so if you're not into spice, please don't read this book. But if you're into spice and you like hockey romance and you're okay with the reverse harem, please pick this up because to die for. Then a book that I read not that long ago, but I'm not sure it would still hold up as a 5-star if I read it again, because I don't know if it deserves a 5-star, but I really had a fun time reading it. I flew through it, even though it is a short book, and that is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. And I just, first of all, I love that it's a VCR tape. It's so quirky and I love it. But this is basically about these 3 siblings that go home, and their mother has recently died, and their siblings don't have a good relationship with each other, and they're going through their parents' old stuff, and they find a VCR tape of their parents committing this horrible act of murder, and they try to figure out what the heck went wrong. So you don't know who you trust, you don't know who the killer is, so you're just discovering these things while you're reading the book. And I thought it was very fast-paced, very well-paced, very good very twisty, and I mean, I kind of predicted who the killer was within the first like 5 pages of the book, but that's okay. I still had a really great time and I thought it was written really well. Now on to my favorite thriller of all time. I think I read this a year or two ago on audiobook, and I really have to reread it, and I just know it would hold up to my favorite thriller of all time, which is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. So it's basically this girl, she goes to her grandmother's for Halloween, and that's her grandmother's birthday, so they always have a big family dinner. But the family is really awful to each other, and they're always fighting, and the grandmother just wants everyone to get along. So the tide rolls in and they can't get away from this house. It blocks the driveway when the tide comes in, so none of them can leave, so they have to kind of like fight and get through their family problems. And then one person starts dying every hour on the hour, and there are riddles left, there are tapes to be watched, and you wind up finding out this family's gigantic dark secret. I never saw this secret coming. I never saw this twist coming. It got me, and that's pretty hard to do in a thriller because I can normally predict what's going on, but this is truly one of the best thrillers ever. Then I'm going to be talking about a little graphic novel, and that is called Fangs. It is the relationship between a vampire and a werewolf, and it's so stinking cute. Like, they're basically just trying to understand each other, and they're so different. Like, she's asking him what his type is, and he's like, goth girls? And she's like, no, your blood type. And like, it's just them trying to basically understand each other and have a relationship, and they're so different. It's so funny. And like, she's trying to decide whether she should eat him or date him. And then like he hates this little chihuahua because obviously a werewolf is gonna not like dogs. So it's just so funny, and I loved it. The relationship's adorable. So if you want like a quick little short graphic novel where it's just a fun loving story, this is great, especially for Halloween time. This one's one of my favorites as well. When I audiobooked this, it is Lauren Graham that narrates it, and that's my favorite because Gilmore Girls is my favorite show of all time, and that is One Italian Summer. So this girl's mother dies, and they always plan to go to Positano, Italy, which her mom had been to when she was younger. So she goes there without her mom after her mom passes, and she's there, and I think something happens, but she starts seeing her mother, and like she basically metaphorically becomes like friends with her mother, and like she sees her mother, and her mother brings her along to all of her favorite places, and she just has this great trip. But it's just so heartfelt because it's like you miss someone so much, and you're doing the things that they did, you feel like they're there with you. And she basically gets to learn who her mother was when she was younger, because in the book she is physically there, and like she sees her and gets to befriend her younger mother, which is just, oh, it makes me cry. And now I want to go to Positano, Italy because it's gorgeous. The Queen, Allie Hazelwood. My first ever romance book I've read from her was The Love Hypothesis. I love that. If I could go back, I probably would give that one 5 stars, even though it's cringy, but it holds such a special place in my heart. I am obsessed with Olive and Adam. They're my favorite. The one that tops it for me is Love Theoretically. Elsie's so funny. I just remember she's like, oh no, I love cheese. That's it. That was her whole thing. I loved it. And I love the idea that, you know, she's in academia, she's struggling to make money, so she has to basically be people's fake girlfriends, and she's fake dating this one guy, but she winds up actually falling in love with the brother, and they also work together, so it's just a messy entanglement, and it truly is like so much tension, like forbidden love almost, because, you know, technically she's dating his brother for all he knows, so that's the forbidden part. Jack really takes the time to love her, understand her, make her understand that she deserves love, and this is my favorite line in the book. I think this is one of the only lines that I highlighted, and it says, I'm Elsie, and I really like cheese, particle physics, and movies with sparkly vampires. And I just love it. Like, Allie Hazelwood knows how to write. She knows how to incorporate the things that the reader girlies just love. Just the things she does. She makes such funny side characters. Like the girl, I think the main girl in this has like a hedgehog or something. She has something. And her roommate hates the animal, and she's like, I call her funny names when you're gone, and like she goes to her and like says she doesn't like her. So like, she just creates these hysterical, quirky side characters that you don't forget about. Like they're all so memorable, and her covers are just adorable. I love it. Now, a book that I read during the hype, gave 5 stars, and then when the second one came out, I was like, no, I don't like this. And then I thought about it and I was like, no, I don't think I really liked the first one. It was predictable, just not that great of a book as I thought it was, even though I do still really enjoy aspects, but I don't think it deserves the hype that it gets. I would change my rating, and I'm going to let you know what I'm going to change my rating to from a 5 stars, but I just want to be honest with you that I did rate this 5 stars when I read it, and that's going to be Fourth Wing. So let me tell you the tale of Fourth Wing. I was seeing people on Bookstagram getting this book with dragons on the side. I do have the first edition before everybody bought it, which is a flex for me because I think this is gorgeous. So I was like, whoa, this book's got dragons on the side. I want that. So that's the main reason I bought it. Then it started getting so much hype. Everybody started loving it. So I was like, well, I have it. Let me read it. So I read it and I binged it. I read it so fast because it's very fast paced and very easy media to consume. So I read it. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. And my husband read it and he was like, babe, I don't really know what you're seeing in this. And then I thought about it and I was like, no, you're right. I think I got caught up in the hype, and I think I got caught up that there was a new book with dragons in it, and now I see that it is simply Divergent with dragons. So I would change my rating to about a 3 or a 3.5, which is still not a bad book. I'm not shitting on this at all. I just don't think it would be one of my favorite 5-star books. I do still love Violet. I think she is a character weaker and has some physical disabilities that she overcomes via her brain, and I really like that, and I do really love the dragons. But I do now realize that Xaden is just a wet rag of a man and he has no personality. So but I do love Violet and dragons, so. Now, I will never stop obsessing over this book. Taylor Jenkins Reid is truly a mastermind of our generation, and I will never let that go. And that's going to be Daisy Jones and the Six, because I feel like these people are real. You're not going to tell me they're not a real band. I listen to their music on Spotify, and I watch their TV show, so they're 100% real. No, I'm just kidding, but seriously, I am obsessed with this book. I love the 70s. So I was like enamored with this, and I feel like the 70s is just such a carefree rock and roll, sex and drugs era that this is like such a fun, carefree book. I just loved the interview format that she wrote this in, and how we got to see like all the band members and like how different events that happened, they all saw it differently, and how the breaking up of the band was seen differently through everyone as well. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but Taylor Jenkins Reid writes books that are loosely based off of real life historical events. So this one is based off of Fleetwood Mac. Now, you guys are gonna laugh at me for this one because this one's hysterical. And like, there's no reason this book should be 5 stars because I'm sure it's not the best book ever written, but it grabbed my heartstrings, and it is just a cute little Christmas novel. It is A Cat Cafe Christmas, and it is by Cody Gary. Now, she writes like books about cats, basically, with people, obviously, but like there's always like cats involved. So this one's a cat cafe that the girl works at, and she winds up falling in love with this guy that she meets, and it's just so heartfelt. It's about Sarah and Ben, and she like needs this marketing help to get her cat cafe up and off the ground because she loves Christmas coffee and cats, and she wants her cat cafe to do well so that these cats that are staying there can be adopted, and that people can come in and just have a nice time, meet their forever cat, because she's also a veterinarian, so she cares about them, so it's like a foster place. She just needs help marketing it so that it can stay afloat. And they wind up falling in love, and look at the little cats on the front. I've talked about this 100 million times, and I'm never gonna shut up about it, and that's the XX. I'm so sorry, but truly one of the best Halloween novels of all time. I am truly obsessed. I'll never not be obsessed. You can't make me not be obsessed, so Vivian curses Reese accidentally, and she's a witch. He's a witch as well, warlock, whatever. His family like founded the town, so he comes back to charge the ley lines. He charges the ley lines with his cursed magic, and he's only cursed when he's in town. Stuff starts happening. All I remember is that they're in Cousin's witch shop, Gwen, which she's in the second book, and all these little skulls start to come to life, and people are like, what the heck? And like they have to like just crush them and be like, no, that was not magic. And then Gwen's cat starts to talk, and he just says treats and mama, and I love him so much. And so now Vivian and Reese need to pair up and get this curse to stop, and they wind up learning about Vivian's ancestors and what happened in this town, and they basically have to just fix everything and get the curse on Reese to go away. So it's basically if you took Halloween Town and mixed it with Gilmore Girls. Now on to my last physical book. I don't think about this book much, but when I read it, I know I loved it. I stayed up late reading it. I really loved the twists. I really loved the world building. I really love the different take this had on vampires, and that is From Blood and Ash. I just love Poppy and Castile. They are so wonderful together. I like the world building with like the Blood Forest, and then all of the lore of like, we got like how vampires even came to be and the difference between them and the Craven, and we just had so much knowledge, and so many like heartfelt moments happened. And then the ending was kind of crap, and then I just never finished the series. But I do love this book. I think Poppy's a badass, and I really like the amount of depth we got in this one. So those were all the physical books that I have. So now we're gonna go over some that I screenshotted from Goodreads, but I don't have them physically, so I either read them on Kindle or audiobook and just don't have the physical copy. So the first one we have is With Love from London. So With Love from London is such a heartfelt novel. It's like more of a literary fiction, but it also has a little bit of romance in there. And again, it's that like mysterious mother-daughter relationship. A librarian, she realizes that her mother has passed away, and she inherited an apartment from her in London and a bookshop. Her mother fled back to London when she was a very little girl. She always hated her mother, never understood why she left her. But when she goes, her mother's best friend still works at the store, and everyone that lives in the small town where the bookstore is loved her mother. They said she was always like a second mother to them. Anyone could go to that bookstore and feel loved and cherished, and like she was always there for them. So this woman is so confused as to why her mother left her and became a mother to other people. Her mother left her clues around the bookshop, and those clues kind of open up and let her discover her mother's life and how it was twisty, and how not everything was straightforward, and why her mother left, and made her realize things about her father. And then I believe she winds up like falling in love with someone there and saving the bookstore from closing. So it's just a tale of like learning that things aren't always what they seem, like a mother-daughter relationship that's kind of like coming to fruition even after her death. So it's so sweet. I love that one so much. Then another one you guys will know is Love Light Farms. I've talked about this one before. I love Stella and Luca so much. Their slow progression from literally friends to lovers is perfect. Luca falls first and falls harder, so Stella buys a Christmas tree farm. She's trying to navigate how to run it, and things keep going wrong, and there's like a little mystery they get to solve, and this entire time we meet this like cute cast of characters that works for her on the farm, and she enters a social media competition, and she says she has a boyfriend, but she doesn't. So Luca pretends to be her boyfriend, and then so the fake dating comes into play, and they actually wind up admitting their feelings for each other finally. It's adorable. I love it. Then probably the only nonfiction that I gave 5 stars and that I've ever given 5 stars is I'm Glad My Mother Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I don't know why that one just hit me and I gave it 5 stars. Normally I give them like 3 or 4 stars depending on who it is. I only audiobook memoirs, and I only listen to the ones of like famous people that I like. So I did Britney Spears, Tom Felton, and Jeanette McCurdy. Those are the only 3, and Lauren Graham. Those are the only 4 that I've listened to. but this one just hit me. I like was obsessed with it. I just think because I grew up kind of in the same time frame Jeanette McCurdy did, and I grew up watching her on iCarly and all these different Nickelodeon shows, and to learn that she was being abused and she still was this happy person, to learn about all these traumatic things that were happening to her and like where she is now and how she is bettering herself. Like it was so well written and well explained, and it was like a structural story. It was beautiful. Like some memoirs are all over the place, but this was like an actual flowing structural story. Then one that I do have physically but I don't have the other two in the trilogy physically is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which was just made into a TV show, so most of you may know about this. But A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the first one is about Pip, and she decides to solve like a 5-year-old murder that occurred in her small town from someone that she like knew to be a good person. So she's trying to solve the case of Sal Singh and Andy Bell, and she winds up pairing up with Sal's brother Ravi to solve this case. And we just see the progression of their friendship and relationship, and we also see her solving the case, so it's very cool. The second one of her friend's brothers goes missing, so she's figuring that out, and a bigger mystery comes into play. And then the third one, she's being targeted and an even bigger mystery is coming into play. She winds up solving the case of the duct tape murderer. She's basically just a badass, and I love her and Ravi, and just her progressing and getting older throughout these books and being in more danger, and Ravi loving her even more. It's just so beautiful. I love seeing the growth of characters throughout books, and they really both grow in all of the books. The next one is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, and I don't remember this book at all. I don't know why I gave it 5 stars. I looked at it and was so confused. I wonder if I gave like a 4 something and I just rated it 5 stars on Goodreads because you know the half stars. I don't remember. I remember thinking it was like The Summer I Turned Pretty, but like a little bit more mature and older. So I believe that these two were together when they were younger, and her parents used to stay at this lake house, but then something happened and she comes back for his mom's funeral, and they wind up kind of rekindling this relationship. So I remember it just ended tragically, and I think there might have been like cheating, but blurred lines cheating, when one of them went away to college, and then they wound up breaking up. And then when she comes for his mother's funeral, they have that spark again, so they rekindle their relationship. So I know I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if it would hold up to 5 stars again if I listened to it or read it, but I did really enjoy that one, and I have not read any of her other books yet. So another one that I've talked about before is, this title always gets me, A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So basically imagine your typical suburban moms getting together for book club, and then all of a sudden these children in this one neighborhood, in like the more like run down neighborhoods, start getting taken. This guy moves in near them. One mom is like so not trusting of him, and she thinks he's a vampire because he only comes out at night, and like there are these other funny silly tropes. She winds up convincing the other moms that he's a vampire, and then he winds up being a vampire, like a really weird version of a vampire, and he is taking these kids, and the ending's funny. I'm not gonna give it away, but the ending's hysterical. So it's just like, even on the book it says like imagine your typical suburban mom versus Dracula. Like, it's hysterical, but they wind up demolishing this man, and I love it with everything in me. And I love Grady Hendrix' writing. He just picks a style and runs with it in his books, and this one is literally like a funny 90s quirky Mom versus Dracula book, and it's just so iconic. I love him. And last but not least, we have Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. This was the first book I read by Julie Soto, but I will be reading everything else she has ever written, which is not that much, I don't think, but I love her writing. So we get introduced to the main character. Gwen is like a struggling musician kind of, and she didn't really have a good home life when she was younger, so she went to the music shop, picked up the violin, and was just phenomenal. And she goes to this wedding in the beginning, and they're like, oh, you're a cellist, right? And she's like, no, I play the violin. And they're like, now we need a cellist. So she winds up playing the cello at this wedding in front of one of the best cello players ever, Xander. and she knows about him. She loves his band, and she is in an orchestra with him. He was born into like music royalty. His mom was like one of the best violin players ever. She develops this kind of enemies to lovers with him. He tells her she sucks all the time, and this tension kind of breaks. And the way that Julie Soto brings music to life, and there's a scene with them and a cello, and it is very spicy, but like not in the way that not like a dirty way. Like it's just so tension filled, that scene. And we wind up learning things about Xander, and it's just so phenomenally written, and their relationship's so beautiful. And I like the pacing and progression of it, because it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'll forgive you for being a jerk, like whatever. Like she pushes him and his boundaries, and I love it. Those are all the books that I've rated 5 stars. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you made it to this point, please leave some kind of star emoji in the comments, or please tell me what some of your favorite 5-star reads are. Thank you for your support as always. Please like this video, subscribe, and make sure to comment. As always, happy reading and love you. Bye.